Welcome everyone to another episode of the Always Be Testing podcast. I'm your host, DeGrange, and I'm really excited to have Ryan with us today. Ryan Pitylak, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you doing, Ty?
It's good to see you.
Yeah, you
good
too.
to see you in person.
That's right.
We do a few of these remotely. Here we are in Austin, Texas, and Ryan and I go quite a ways back to his days as an agency leader. He's been a really, I'd say, prolific growth and performance marketing leader in your career. So,
well, thank you. Yeah, it's crazy how long we've known each other. I think back to those expressionary days and greeting cards.
Yep.
Stationery.
The world of stationery. We were
Checks
living
in the
it.
mail.
Checks in the mail. Yep. Brings back memories.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
Spent some time at CJU with our friends down there.
Yeah, it's beautiful there in Santa Barbara, isn't it?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So you're now VP of Growth at NinjaTrader. That's amazing. Maybe just give us a little bit about that high level and that role and kind of what you're working on.
Yeah, definitely. So for context, NinjaTrader is a retail futures brokerage and software company. So we provide a trading platform for retail traders to execute their futures trades on. And if you're unfamiliar with the futures instrument, it's effectively a derivative instrument similar to maybe an option. It's leveraged. It's a great way for somebody who doesn't have a lot of capital to enter the capital markets in a leveraged way. And in my role, it's really an exciting role. So I've been a trader for about 15 years myself, personally. And I've been through it all. I mean, it's a challenging journey. And the nice thing about it is there is a pathway to learning how to trade and to do it effectively. So in my role, running growth, we're building a bunch of education and tools to help traders become better.
That's awesome.
Yeah, if you're aspiring to be a good futures trader, we're going to be the place where you go to learn and get the practice that you need to hone your craft so you can trade effectively in the live markets.
And just out of curiosity, kind of off the cuff here, is there certain things that you kind of look for? It's like, how seasoned are these traders? How new are they to the world of futures trading?
Yeah, well, so we certainly get traders of all type. I mean, there's certainly people that are new to trading in general. Typically, people come to us and they've had some trading experience already, usually stock or options experience, and they're trying to find the instrument that suits them. The meeting people where they are is what's important. And so, being able to provide resources that work both for if it's your first day or if you've been at it for 10 years, that's something that we're going to do.
Awesome. Very cool. No, it's super interesting. I'm definitely not in the futures arena, and I don't think I would consider myself a trader per se, but I think that world is fascinating. I enjoy keeping up with it, and I think we have some folks in the audience that probably find it interesting as well. I think there's maybe a little similarity between some of the performance marketing world and some of the trading world.
A lot of numbers, a lot of data, a lot of analysis.
Yep. You've seen a lot in the world of performance marketing, to say the least. Running an agency, leading growth and performance marketing for significantly sized brands. What are some of the changes that you've seen in the last couple of years? Obviously, it changes quite quickly, so super curious to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, well, I remain plugged into the performance media buying world as a result of some companies that I advise, and the biggest change I would say that I've seen persist and accelerate over the last few years is the predominance of AI to drive performance outcomes. The reality is, like, when everything was going on with ChatGPT and everybody was getting so excited about it, some of the biggest use cases of AI in the digital world were actually with the major advertisers, Google and Meta. And their bidding algorithms were such that you typically would give it some targets and it's going to set your bids and it's going to try to find the right people to show the ads to. And frankly, now more so than ever, you're giving it components of a potential ad, and it's deciding which combination of components of the ad should be shown to that particular person based on what they know about them. And so that all of a sudden becomes like the standard. And I think about like for Meta, even if I go back, man, probably only about 5 years ago, at that time, you were still doing a lot of audience selection and curation. And, Meta has this comment that they say that creative is the new audience targeting. And, that's largely true. I mean, generally speaking, you keep the targeting really broad and you have a really good solid ad. And then that ad will, resonate with people who are in your target. And therefore, Meta will know to show it to more people like that. Google created a new product over the last few years called Performance Max. And more recently, a new product called Demand Gen. But if I kind of hone in on Performance Max, what is that product? I mean, it's effectively you saying to Google, here are some guardrails of the type of people that I want to find. Here are my ads. Here's my budget and my target of what I want to get a customer at, and go find them for me. And so that's really handing over like a lot of reins. And so I think as a result, you need fewer people. The last trend I'll hit on is in the AI vein. When it comes to like search engine optimization, typically you would look for people who are coming from and searching in Google and then coming directly over to you, or maybe they're going to Bing. Mm-hmm. Now these AI platforms like ChatGPT have become so prevalent that actually like the search, the referral volume from them can be quite high. So making sure that you're showing up as a cited source in those is another way of leaning into AI in today's world.
Love that. It's so spot on. We're witnessing it. We're living through it. I've shared with my team a number of things around the AI movement. I think it's top of mind for a lot of marketers. If you're remotely paying attention, those are some great insights. I just observed personally, like I posted about it today, 100% of my search used to be Google, right? And at one point it was like 80%. Now it feels like it's 20%. I'm using AI model interfaces almost completely. And
yeah. Just the other day I came across the ChatGPT browser extension, which I'm sure has been there forever, but I just came across it and I was like, oh, wow, this can take over as my search. And then I thought, do I want that to become my search? Do I want ChatGPT to be the only thing I'm getting my information? Do I want it, so well packaged by the algorithm? And I'm not quite sure I'm there yet. So, but I agree. I typically will back up all my searches with ChatGPT so it can at least be like coalesced.
Yep.
But I'll probably give that up over time.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm finding Perplexity's use case, so like being able to select the model, the use case. If you want to do deep research, you can. If you wanted to go into something else, you can. But spot on insights. Kind of some interesting things to think about. What of the world of performance marketing, you've got a lot of different channels and levers. What's an area that you're particularly bullish on?
There's a lot that I could talk about here. I think if I was going to narrow it down to one thing, I have always been such a big proponent of the power of influencers. And, we've gone through different phases of the kind of relative importance of these influencers. And I think back to, for context, which is how Ty and I met, I was running along with a great business partner, an agency called Unique Influence, and Expressionary, and was one of our clients among obviously many others. And that agency was acquired into a holding company called MDC. And inside of MDC, there were a lot of different creative agencies. And one in particular was 72 and Sunny, a very prolific and powerful creative agency. It was really awesome to be able to work with a team of that caliber. And they had started this influencer initiative called Sunday, and so I got on board and helped them. And even going all the way back to then, this is in probably 2018, I was just this gigantic proponent of it. But it was a little early then. And today, I see the power that an advertiser can realize as a result of somebody authentically talking about their experience with a product. For that to work, you need to give the influencer really free reign about what they say about you. You want to give them some guidelines like, hey, touch upon these things. This is what we kind of care about you hitting on. But like, we want you to be authentic. We want you to tell your story of using it, and what were some of the good things, and maybe what were some of the bad things, because that actually creates authenticity. I think people are afraid of sharing the bad things, but it comes across as fake if you don't. And
Agreed.
so this kind of influencer is the foundation of it. But then the question is, like, what's the intersection? So for me, this intersection between influencer marketing and affiliate marketing is very interesting, because now, not only like in a traditional affiliate model, you would have all of these like websites that were your partners, and these people probably are showing up in a really great position on Google, and then you want to make sure that you're showing up when somebody gets to their webpage. Great, like that version of affiliate marketing is still like the bulk of what it is, but there's this other version around influencer, which is really neat. And so that's one application around affiliate. The other application is, just around like, branded content. So, somebody on Meta puts together a post, shares it, and then you, the brand, come and promote that post coming from them as like a co-branded ad. And that's extremely powerful. So now it's actually coming from their account, and, it furthermore increases that authenticity.
I love it. And for the record, Ryan was not paid to, give his take that is basically very much ingrained in our thesis and our beliefs. We came at these somewhat very, independently. Ryan's definitely one of the great performance marketing minds in Austin and beyond. And it's just cool to hear you say that, candidly, because that's where we're seeing a lot of the data flowing. I mean, as far back as like 2018, 2019, we talked about our flywheel, which we, deemed hey, let's get great influencer content. Let's whitelist that into the ads. Let's get your landing pages dialed in and create a bit of a flywheel that way. And we're seeing it just play out. It's like the level of people talking about influencer, creator, the level of people seeking that coveted authenticity you reference, the need to balance the positive and the negative, I think is just so spot on. And we're seeing it in spades. And a lot of clients, and I know you're living through it, right now with your current, brand you're working on. So it feels a lot of validation, and
Good.
Feels like it's hard to get it right too. Like everyone, it's kind of like, I'm sure it's similar to like running Meta a 10 out of 10 quality, running an affiliate program that's actually doing its job. It's easier said than done to kind of nail that authenticity you referenced.
Well, definitely. I mean, because people are motivated to drive sales, and so as a result, they may want to say things that are just perfectly on point, but again, that's the people that I think are more successful, those influencers that are more successful, they realize that they should just say what they really think.
100%. Marquise Brownlee is one of my great examples. I feel like he's referenced often for obvious reasons. I believe he's notably kind of reviewed Apple products, I believe perhaps Tesla, I think the Ridge wallet, and he's like, he is just phenomenally informative, and he's also very candid about things that are not right with the product.
That's
so spot on. What do growth and performance marketers get wrong?
Well, this list is much longer. To keep it tight.
Found your sweet spot.
Yeah. I mean, I've just been doing this for so long, and it's like almost every single campaign I see. But at a high level, I think one of the mistakes that growth marketers tend to make is, they are successful in their core channels. So, typically for a performance marketer, that's going to be Google, Meta, TikTok, maybe to some degree search engine optimization if you can get your organic search together. I don't know if I said affiliate, but those are the
Yep.
key channels. And outside of that, you start to run into like, okay, where do I go next? And so the next most obvious place maybe is YouTube. And so you're like, okay, maybe I can drive some performance out of YouTube. And actually, maybe you do start to drive some performance out of YouTube, because what you realize is, oh, I can actually show some ads to people who are actually, we're at google.com searching for what I care about. And so when they go back to YouTube, I can show them an ad. Okay, well, that's pretty tightly targeted. And then you start to think, well, maybe I could go like even more upper funnel. Maybe I could do display marketing generally. Maybe I could do programmatic. Maybe I could do connected TV. I mean, geez, maybe optimistically, I could actually do real TV, linear TV.
Mm-hmm.
And so you try to apply those same performance marketing tactics to these upper funnel channels. You make creative that would work on Meta, but that's not the type of creative that's going to work when you're watching a television program. You use the measurement techniques that you used, which is mostly click-based attribution, to know that somebody clicked on your ad. And you think, well, I can't measure clicks, so I'm going to use these view-throughs. Or actually in connected TV, I'm going to use the IP address of the person who watched the ad in their home. And if that IP had a conversion on a laptop or a phone, then I'm going to attribute that back to, or count credit for, back to that ad that maybe they saw on TV. But like, this person may have already been in market. They may have already been to your site. There's so many details associated with this that make it hard. So that's one mistake I see, trying to go there without actually having the robust ability to do measurement and do it with like a robust partner. The short version of that is like, this is what the bigger agencies are there for. I lived in big agency land for a little while, and there are things that they get right, and there are things that you're better off just doing on your own. But certainly where they get it right is as you start to go upper funnel, putting that together.
Yep.
Okay, I want to add one more thing, which is,
Yep.
in the always be testing kind of framework, and we'll talk about that obviously a little bit as we go along, but something that I see a lot of advertisers focus on is, it's like, if it was the first thing you would focus on, it would be the advertising. What is the creative? What is the message? Where am I showing the ad? All of that. And they focus so much on that. They put all this energy into that. And then you think, okay, well, I'm sending all this traffic, or all these people, traffic, right? You're sending all these people to this landing page. And this landing page says certain things. There's value propositions on it, so there's call to action buttons. There's, what's showing up above the fold. Is there a video there? Like, how does this language and value props compare to a competitor? I always like to do that. And get a sense for, am I saying the right things? Much like you might think in your ad. At the end of the day, what really matters is the quality of your product or service. It's the price at which you're charging for it. It's how well it is actually competitively positioned against the other thing that somebody is looking for. So, too often I think people spend, too much energy focusing on the advertising. And a lot of the times, if something isn't working, that's usually not the piece that's broken. The piece that's broken is like, let's go all the way down to the product or service, your brand, things like that.
Yep. Spot on. I love that. There's kind of a need to be customer centric and product focused to kind of make sure that you've got that piece dialed in. I love the thought of the marketing is not always the thing that's not working in that case.
Or can't fix that problem. It's like, I think too often people look at the marketer
100.
and they're like, why isn't the advertising working? And you're like, it's not the advertising.
Yeah.
And I figured this out. I mean, I've worked on over 100 brands. So from gigantic brands all the way down to small little startups.
Yep.
So like it's been the gamut.
Mm-hmm.
And what I learned after that experience was, it actually really wasn't so much me and like how good of a job I could do, or we as an agency could do advertising. It was really them and like their product.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's a natural human tendency. It's like, you're taking ownership. You're doing the great job. You're trying to do. You think you have all this mandate to kind of like, control the situation. And I'm sure there's a logical fallacy or a psychological principle around that. But
it's like being a more holistic marketer.
Yeah. Yeah. Thinking more full funnel, thinking more product centric, thinking, like your consumer. And I think your other point was so spot on, applying principles of a stage you're not in, applying principles of a channel you're not working in to another initiative and campaign is such an interesting concept because it happens so often where it's like, I'm going to apply super DR, small budget thinking to XYZ when you can't really think that way. It's a really smart point. You felt businesses of all shapes and sizes like you talked about. Are there a few learnings that kind of bubble up that you just kind of recall and go, yep, that's an amazing aha moment or learning from an experiment or a campaign or an experience you've had?
Yeah. I mean, I think I went into the agency experience. I was running a performance digital agency, and then when we got acquired into MDC, it was a much bigger, broader, full-service advertising agency in the context of a much larger collection of creative agencies. And I really did get an appreciation for things like upper funnel advertising done well. I saw the power of just straight linear TV. And sorry if I'm using a technical term, linear TV is effectively just like the normal TV you buy. Like if you think going back 20 years ago, that's what linear TV is. You can contrast that to some other acronyms I'm not going to give you. But,
Yep.
At any rate, so the point is that I looked at the performance of these channels. I was like, oh my gosh, they're doing great. But the measurement of it is very tricky. So you have to get a media mix model together, and you have to do this. Effectively, what you're doing is you're exposing the advertising to different geographies and holding it back from other geographies, and then you look at the lift in that geography versus the ones you've held it out on. It's not that complicated, but you need to think about the saturation of the market, and there's a lot that goes into it. That was maybe one thing that I've learned over time. Two is that in marketing or in advertising, there are different channels end up costing different amounts of money to get a customer. And of course, there's this concept of an incremental cost of getting a customer. And so, if you just think about channels in the context of maybe above or below your average, then you start to see the power of certain channels. Affiliate is a great example. Probably unfairly so. Affiliates generally tend to get paid less from a customer acquisition cost perspective than what I'll pay to get a customer from Google. And there's probably a bunch of factors related to that. But at the end of the day, what that does is it creates a subsidy. So this is below your average, and it's a cost to get that customer that's below. And this effectively subsidizes the more expensive channels, like maybe non-branded search in Google, where, somebody's, right on the mark for what you want, but it's super competitive. You're in an auction and you're competing against these other people. And, if you back off of those bids, if you're not competitive, then you're just not going to really show up, and you're just going to lose all that volume. If you try and drive volume, you have to. So it's this concept of the importance of affiliates. And the second, or the third is that, people ask me a lot about search engine optimization, about showing up organically in search. And, I really try to put it in perspective, because to show up organically in search, to be one of the top places in the search results, it actually ends up being very expensive. The amount of money that you need to spend to build up your site domain authority is what it's called, to get really high quality links into you. But it's not these are links that I'm going around and procuring. No, it's the links that you're getting as a result of being a brand. And that happens over time. And that really is a function of how big of an overall company and brand you are. And so once you've built this gigantic authority, then search engine optimization becomes something that you can actually pursue. And again, that's another gigantic subsidy channel, because usually the cost of those conversions is effectively zero. I mean, you have some maintenance costs to make it work and some initial investment costs to build it up. But people underestimate just how much work and actually how much cost there is to get to that point.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's the quote unquote organic channel, but it's certainly all of them cost money and time and resource, and you hit the nail on the head. It's also a long, slow burn sometimes.
Yeah.
So, what are you most excited about right now?
Yeah, well, in the world of performance marketing or just in general?
I think maybe it relates to kind of the excitement around what you're building, with the
Ninja Trader?
Ninja Trader.
Yeah,
Excuse
yeah.
me.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so, it's interesting. So, what I have, I've had a lot of different like cycles in my life in terms of career. And what I've realized over time is that I have to do something that has meaning for me. Um, and so for me at the moment, meaning is trying to help these people, these traders who are on that journey that I've been on for so long, and giving them kind of like a leg up. I've always been motivated by helping people meet their financial goals. I think it probably goes back to like, my upbringing, and I was making money for myself from a very young age. Was taught to be entrepreneurial from my father from a very young age, and I saw how entrepreneurship changed my life financially. And that's just a path. And so that's why the work at Zen Business, that other company that
Yep.
I helped found.
Yep.
And, that's why that business was so compelling to me, because we were able to help entrepreneurs fulfill their dreams. And it's really typically like, yes, part of it is like getting control of your life and all those other things. But at the end of the day, it's usually about financial freedom, people trying to make their lives better. And that really is usually the same thing with trading. People are looking for a way to improve their life financially. And so for me, like, I find a lot of meaning in helping people pursue that.
That's amazing. I love that. I didn't realize it was. I mean, it kind of you get some of that when we speak and you hear about some of the varying interests and achievements you've had, but it makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of freedom through that, and that's awesome to hear. That's really cool. I think there's a lot more to talk about there because I feel like I feel similarly in some of the conversations I have around affiliate influencer. You're kind of teeing up these small businesses or solopreneurs
Yeah.
a lot of times, and there's some similarities to that world in what you're saying.
Well, I mean, that's a very good point. I mean, it is kind of amazing how much some of these influencers can make.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
it's a real business. It's not a small business. And
100.
yeah, it's pretty neat. I like that the whole creator economy actually took off. I mean, I used to say this, like, this is, like I said, back in like 2015, 2018-ish timeframe. I said, like, the power of influencers is amazing. The creator economy is just going to change everything, but, it took a while for it to get here. And now, it is YouTube and these people that are on there talking about their experiences. I mean, it is such an important thing. In the world of trading, it's exceptionally important. You typically will go on to YouTube to try to learn how to trade. That's where you go. And so now there's all these influencers who are out there telling their story about like how you should trade, and as a result, like, find out about our brand. But this isn't just impactful for the business that I'm in today. It's impactful for really all businesses.
Yeah, you nailed it. You saw it coming, and I think to an extent, I did too. And it's cool to see it play out that way. I mean, the levels of people outside of marketing that are writing about it, talking about it, emphasizing, we're kind of living through this movement. So I think it's really important that you're underscoring it, and it's cool that you kind of saw some of the writing on the wall, certainly.
It's hard to miss it now.
Yeah, it's here now. We sound smart maybe now, but so all good businesses have their challenges. What would you say maybe some of the big things you're trying to tackle this year operationally?
Yeah. What I have learned, I have worked in companies that are like just me, one person. I've worked in companies that are 20 people, 300 people, 500 people. I guess there were 10,000 people at MDC. There are always more projects that you want to work on than you have resources.
Mm-hmm.
that is 100% the case in any company I've ever been in, any size. And I've talked with people that have worked at gigantic companies, and it's the same problem. Somebody one time said that really what strategy is, like if you just think, because I went to business school and we sat through these strategy classes, and you're going through all this analysis, and somebody kind of simplified it for me one time, and they said strategy is really the prioritization of your scarce resources. And most specifically, it is what you are going to say no to.
100.
And so in my world today, I have way more ideas than I have resources for. And that will always be the case. I'm fortunate in that, I have a lot of resources just to work on my projects. So that's great. And the company's really behind the work that we're doing. It's meaningful work.
That's awesome.
But, at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, so much gets left on the cutting room floor. But again, that's the point. It is figuring out what you're going to say no to.
It's I love that call out. We talk about it a little bit, probably not enough. And I think it's ruthless prioritization, saying no.
Yeah.
It's spot on. In the spirit of the Always Be Testing pod, we talked about it a little bit, but just some of your favorite, maybe greatest hits of your experiments you've had in your career.
Yeah.
So there's been quite a few.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so I've got a couple, and I've been through many different ways of doing. I'm going to focus largely on conversion optimization testing, so think like landing page testing.
Yep.
There is a lot that can go into the actual testing of your creative. I guess before I go down the landing page testing, let me riff on creative testing for a moment. So if you're an advertiser on Meta in particular or TikTok, you need to create an extreme number of ads. People completely underestimate the volume. If you're spending, let's call it, even if you're spending like $250,000 a month, I mean, you should create at least like 100 ads a month.
I was going to say that. Yep.
A month.
Yep.
And so, a typical brand might create like 3 to 5. And so it's like, it's just a totally different volume.
Yep.
Because you just don't know what's going to work as a result of just people's interests. So that's one thing I'll say. You have to really kind of enable the algorithm to, the meta algorithm to work by giving it the fire, the fuel for the fire.
Needs that volume.
Mm-hmm. And so that's that. As far as landing page testing, I remember I went through a period of running these tests, and think about it. You have a landing page, and on the landing page, you have these different elements that you could change. So let's pick an element. Let's talk about the H1 header tag. It's the most prevalent text that you have on the page. And, let's run a test where we test 6 different variations of that header. A very simple and obvious test, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what we would find is that, and I'm going back to my days at Zen Business here, we would find that there would always be a winning combination. It would always beat the control. There'd be something that would be an outlier. And then we would go and we would implement it, and that would become the new baseline, and we wouldn't see any results. It would be literally the same conversion rate as it was before. And so I realized that when you orchestrate a test like that, where you have 6 or 7 variations, although statistical significance should win out, and you should know that this actually is truly a winner, there's something about it where it doesn't actually work, and just probably through randomness, which isn't supposed to happen with statistical significance, but it does seem to happen, a variation would win. And we did this for months and months and kept banking all these wins. We're just crushing it. And everything was the same. And eventually we had to say like, okay, this is not working. Like, what we have to do is we take one idea, we test it against another idea, A/B test. We see if A is different than B. There's a couple of ways to identify whether or not A is better than B. So in your conversion optimization tool, when you're looking at the conversion rate of that landing page in the control versus the experiment, what you're looking for is the experiment's conversion rate on a given day to be better than the control. And you want to see that plotted every single day that the experiment runs. And ideally, you see a gap between those two lines. What you don't want to see, and this happens a lot, is you don't want to see an experiment that out of the gate crushes it, but then over time, it slowly starts to drift down. And I'm not talking about an average. That's the other thing. You can't do this with averages. You have to look at literally every single day's conversion rate. That's what matters. You can't look at the cumulative conversion rate. You don't even really get these out of the conversion tools. Like they actually usually give you a cumulative number. Because what the cumulative number will hide is if you have a really big kind of weird outlier in the beginning, things will like slowly merge together over time. But like day 2 through 14 could be terrible, and it takes forever to see that actually they're about the same. But if you look at it every single day, you realize, oh, actually, this one is persistently doing better. And that's a really good sign.
You're normalizing those numbers. It's smart.
Yeah. And then the other thing is like, so you need to run a lot of people through an experiment. You need probably like in terms of conversion outcomes, like actual events to really feel confident, you need probably 50 or 100. 100's better. 50 is like the absolute minimum actual conversions to occur. And even if you're a high volume site, what you don't want to do is run an experiment for like 2 days and you're like, oh, great, I got 100 conversions. It was a winner. Let's go on to the next test. Like typically what I found is you have to let tests run for about 2 weeks. And so it's so that you can see those lines remain spread apart in terms of the conversion rates between the control and the experiment. When you get to an end of an experiment like that, like not only have you obviously gotten to statistical significance, but you have like several other very important factors in play. And I have found that when I then go implement those experiments to become the baseline, that then the actual conversion rate lift persists.
Love that. Love that. It's amazing how many people are not testing enough, or sometimes even worse, they're setting these things up incorrectly and they're getting false positives or other things. So,
well, and it's hard because like I've always usually had conversion testing resources, and becomes like there's actually engineering teams behind this because 100. They have to actually design the landing pages and everything like
Absolutely.
that. But you end up assuming the benefit of that change in your business model. You're like, oh, hey, I just got a 15% conversion rate improvement. Next month's going to be 15% better. And then it's not. And then that's a problem. So it's like, it's important to get it right.
Yeah. No, it's a really powerful reminder, like the framework and thinking about setting things up the right way. And I love that thinking and seeing that gap over time. What's the sliding door moment in your career?
Sure. Well, I had I'll say two. And one was when I was approached to join the founding team at Zen Business. The CEO there, Ross Burdorf, someone I knew back from Home Away, invited me to start that business with him I was one of 5 founders. And that was an amazing experience, really changed my life. We raised over $250 million for that business and got it up to a $1.7 billion valuation.
It's amazing.
And I ran a really, really big part of the business and a lot of different types of teams. So that was really neat.
It's awesome.
That created an opportunity. So after leaving and having some downtime, and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, it was in that time where I started to get a lot of opportunities that were passing through kind of my door, people that would either ask me to run their early stage startups, like kind of be the CEO of them, or a variety of other established companies. And, I was patient during that process. And one of the things I was trying to identify is I was trading full time at that point. And what I actually realized is, although I love trading, I really like business. I like people. I like relationships. I like working on projects.
Yeah.
Trading's very like alone and you by yourself in front of the screen. And yes, you can do it socially with other traders, but maximally you're talking to people on the phone like an hour a day. It's not like all day.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, I was there and I was looking at these companies and I was like, oh, maybe there's this business over here that I like and this other business, and what if I like wrangled the finances together to buy them both and merge them together? And I was like, geez, I don't know anything about the business of trading. But it was at that time when I decided, like, this is my passion. Like, I need to do something in this industry. And so it's kind of a lesson around like pursuing your passion and, living your like truth a little bit. And so, I found this in kind of with Ninja Trader. When Ninja Trader invited me on, I was really excited about the role that was available for me there. And it's been a perfect fit. And so I think a little bit it's like patience and, just trying to really be true to what you care about. I think the other thing that's important about this is, passion takes you very far. Passion, makes it so that work does not feel like work. Like, I don't feel like it's work when I'm working. I like amazing. The problems I'm solving. I enjoy the like result that I'm trying to get for these traders.
It's huge.
Yeah, and so like when some problem comes up or some hurdle, like I'm not like beaten down by it. I'm just like, okay, this is the thing that I need to get over to get to the goal, and the goal is something I really care about at a pretty fundamental level.
Love that. Wow. Yeah, that just gives you a lot to chew on and think about. I love that. Yeah, the patience, the passion, and then just like it kind of makes it not feel as much like work, which is pretty sustainable.
Yeah.
Coming down the home stretch, you've dropped some amazing knowledge. Just jumping into some fun personal stuff. Is there something you want to share that maybe people don't know about you? I know we kind of talked a lot about the trading piece, but anything part of that you kind of want to drop that maybe we missed?
No, sure. I mean, I have a beautiful family at home, beautiful wife, 2 little kids, both boys.
Exciting years.
Yeah, that's it's a fun part of my life, and I definitely changed as a result of being a father. Someone was asking me, I think they have like a little kiddo at home, like a couple-month-old. And I said, like, there's these chapters in life. There's this chapter where you become an adult and you get married. And so there's this like single adulting life and then this married adulting life. And then there's this other chapter, which is parenting. And it's totally different than the first one. Like your priorities change, your time changes. And now I just hang out with my kids all weekend and my wife. And like, there's friends around, but like, it's like friends with kids and, so it's totally changed. And it's interesting how that brought me back to this like need for meaning. It's so interesting how they're interconnected because, once I kind of got out of thinking about myself, thinking about the family, thinking about my kids, their future, it does create some perspective that I have found in myself where I'm thinking about like people in general. And, then as a result have become, very motivated by trying to just help people in their lives.
That's awesome. Very cool. Yeah, I think that stepping outside the self is a really interesting thought. And I think kids and family certainly do that in a good way. So that's amazing. Is there something you've bought recently where you're like, all right, this is just kind of a rave thing. I need to share how awesome it is.
Yeah, and I know you said under 200, so I was like,
throw out the price.
So I looked on eBay, and you can buy this item used.
Got it.
For $199.
Got it. Wow, impressive.
Yeah. So I just recently got the Remarkable Paper Pro.
Okay.
And so this is it's effectively a way to take notes, but a digital version.
I've looked at this.
Oh, it's awesome.
I love note taking, and I'm like, I'm like got my little moleskin I'm obsessed with.
And then then it's not with you.
I
Now
kind
this
of
is with me when I go to like some other place and I have my computer. It's still with me.
I've been on the fence for a while. Now you're getting me closer.
Yeah, but it was not $200, but it's okay. It was good.
That's amazing. What kind of got you into the trading world in the first place?
I had a buddy. So when I was at HomeAway back in the day, geez, we're going back to like, 06 or something like that. Maybe it was 05 or 04. I mean, it was a while ago. I think it was 06. And I met a buddy of mine there who introduced me into trading. He'd been trading for a long time. One of my closest friends, and he and I talk every day on the phone. And
that's awesome.
We had for years. And so he kind of showed me the ropes, and I was very fortunate to learn from him. I think that, ultimately trading is something that you have to learn from somebody else. Like left to your own devices, you're probably not going to do a very good job. You need to really figure out who you want to learn from. And so Trey and I were kind of always on this quest to solve this problem together, my buddy.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's kind of how I got into it. And then it just persisted. Trading is like, in some ways, the ultimate challenge. I don't know that I've ever done anything as difficult. And the market is completely unpredictable.
Especially now.
And so it becomes pretty much one of the hardest problems to solve in probably the most competitive environment in the world. And something about solving that challenge is just it's forever interesting. And what I love about it is, they talk about trading. It's not that you're like conquering the market. It doesn't actually happen that way. It's really that you conquer yourself. It's really a self-development process that you go through to like retrain the way that you perceive the world and information. And through that, so much discovery and development happens. And so that's also like this part of it that keeps me there and motivated.
Wow. I think that's going to make the highlights of the pod. That was the mind-blowing, insightful thought. And I've heard that, but the way you articulated that was just like, okay, now my interest is even further piqued by this. But it is definitely a self exercise that I think you just hit.
Yeah.
We're in Austin. I've been here 5 years. You've been here for
23.
A long time.
Yeah, a while.
How would you describe the community for tech, for investing, for growth?
Well, there's money here. There's money here if you're looking for investor capital. We're sitting in the halls of a capital factory. It's a great way to get your business off the ground through this organization. I'm a big fan of what they do here. The reality is it is a much more accessible community compared to maybe like the East or West Coast, where I've spent a lot of time on both.
Yeah.
But things are more like life size here, and so you can build relationships. It's very easy to get to the top people here. As a growth marketer, there are many more consumer companies than there were back when I first got here. And so I think with Austin's prolific growth, both in the startup scene, but then also just as a community, it has created an environment where like more smart people are coming into the city. They're starting interesting companies. And now all of a sudden, as a result, there's a bunch of different places where you could potentially work. So I think it's a great place to come to, pursue your growth marketing career.
I love it. It covers so much. And I would say, I don't have as large of a sample as you, obviously, being in Austin, but my observation's been super aligned. And there's like a little bit of that. I don't know if it's the combination of factors, maybe a little bit of a Southern hospitality where it's like there's a little bit of openness. I think the openness in the community and that willingness to help is really, it reminds me of San Francisco, which was in the kind of like that golden, what I felt like were golden years for me personally and professionally, and, late aughts, early tens, whatever it is, of the 2010 to 2015, 2017 range. So,
yeah, how would you contrast it to San Francisco?
Yeah, I spent a lot of time, I was in San Francisco for 10 years, and it definitely feels like I think there's a lot of that excitement and energy and positivity that was really a lot of positive things clicking at once. So people investing, people building, people starting things here. It felt very similar to me of what it felt like to be in San Francisco from '07 to 2017.
Got it.
And I think it's certainly a different culture, different area, obviously, but there's some really positive characteristics that I'm seeing kind of correlate from my view. People were very like, go sit down at whatever coffee shop, and people were very open to meeting and talking and sharing and giving you insights and transparency. And I think, in their time. And I feel like that's the case here too. So it sounds like there's alignment there. Favorite trip? Got any good ones you want to drop on us?
I thought about this question a little bit, and obviously there's a bunch of great trips that I go on with my family now, and we try to go to different places to go skiing. It's like my not so hidden objective to get my kids really interested in skiing so that
Same.
I can go. As a northerner, it's like I want to be able to go myself. It's also a gift you give them when they're kids, to be able to learn that skill.
100. So hard to learn when they're older.
Right. That's
harder.
Right. That's right. Yeah, I see it. Especially down here, I see it because, people in Texas, it's harder to get to the mountain. And so if your family didn't prioritize it, then, you don't learn the skills, and then it's very hard to pick it up later.
Yep.
The two trips that I'll just say, one, about 20 years ago, I went to Moscow, and that was crazy. That was cool, but really interesting to see. It's like, opposite world, it's just so different. And then Beijing was also very neat. Went there as a result of the MBA program, and that was pretty eye-opening. I mean, I had never seen so many people in one space, and just, these different cultures and the way that they live, and just how different they actually are from how we live day to day. It's just very interesting and eye-opening, and, it gives you some perspective on, maybe our way of doing things isn't right, and there are aspects of how other people live their lives that may be better. I'm thinking, specifically when I say that, I'm thinking of Japanese culture. That's what's coming to mind when I make that comment.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
I'm obsessed with their
Zenness and finding the beauty in everything around. And, so anyways, the point is you only gain that perspective as you go to different places.
I love that. Those are awesome examples. Great thought. I'm picturing that Japanese terminology. It kind of ties back to what you shared earlier about finding that passion. And I forget the Japanese word for it, but it's this graph of doing something you love, doing something that's useful, and ishika or something like that. It's a great, beautiful word, and it just kind of captured what you shared.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
I love that.
Yeah, it's like finding the flow in your life and also work.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think was it in the Blue Zones Netflix documentary where it talks about people living a long time? I don't know.
Yeah.
This has been beyond amazing. Would be silly not to ask great trading book or book resource that you might recommend for people to think about that world.
Yeah, in the trading world. I have read a lot, but the one, it's kind of an obvious one, is Mark Douglas's Trading in the Zone. It's a book that I read every year.
Wow. It's quite a testament.
Read. And there's something about the truth of trading that's in those pages that, you definitely should not start with some book on technical analysis or charting or something like that. Those come later. You have to get a handle on the psychology bits first.
Nailed it. Ryan, this has been absolutely killer. One of my favorite episodes, one of my favorite in-person episodes.
Yeah, well, we've known each other for a long time, so this is really nice for me too. And
awesome.
Really excited to, see what you've been doing at the agency. It's awesome.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. And for folks that want to catch up with you and learn more and connect, what's the best way?
Yeah, you can just look me up on LinkedIn.
Cool.
That's typically the best way. I will say that I'm not the best at keeping up with all of my social accounts, but, you're a busy man. I can be connected to there, yeah.
Beautiful. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.